passion for golf. I was golf captain in my primary school. Later on, I came back to Uganda, and when I played in Uganda, I was handicap 4 at the age of 16, as you mentioned. And I think at some point, I was even competing to get national points. So if I go back into the records, I think I got quite a few national points playing the main events in Uganda, and that was when the national team was just being formed. It was just taking off. But unfortunately, I didn't live in Uganda. I lived in England, so I could only play golf really during my holidays and my breakaway. And yeah, so golf became a bit to me it became a bit tedious because I got to a point in my life where I think I had a decision to take if I wanted to go professional in golf or not. And I think it was probably my fault because at that point in time I wanted to go to a golf school in America, and my mum wanted me to go to a golf school in South Africa, being near her home, and just being the golf school in South Africa had both education and golf, where the school in America was strictly golf. It was no education, no nothing, all day, every day is theory of golf, practical of golf, skill of golf, understanding the game. And I then opted, being the stubborn person that I am, I opted not to then pursue my golf career, which was probably a mistake, but lessons learned from it. And later, then I developed a love for racing, and here we are.
Well, still discussing golf. You say it's a decision you regret in your career. Where do you think you would have been by now if you had followed your love for golf from the onset?
I think it's very difficult to say where I was because I think even when I went to the UK and I played in the UK, although I was the first pair in golf, although I was probably one of the best youths out there, people had progressed much further than me. And at this age, I was about 16. So I had recognized that I could be one of the best in Africa. But when I put myself on a global standard, which I think that's where Uganda needs to look, on a global standard. You could be one of the best in Uganda, East Africa. What happens when you bring in the South Africans? What happens when you bring in the British, the Spanish? Because they develop skills from such a young age for their youth. They're driven from such a young age. I remember playing with a kid who was about 9, 10 years old. He was a handicap 6. And I was 16, I was a handicap 4. And I think at that point, that was a realization. That was to realize, if you look at some of the best F1 drivers, look at Lewis Hamilton when he started racing. At what age was he competing at such a competitive age? And to what standard? So I think, as much as I may regret it, I think it was a good decision because today I am who I am. I'm happy with what I'm doing. Of course, life takes many turns and twists, but I think you make the most of every moment in life, you know.
Getting back to rallying, there are lots of types of rallying. There are quad bikes, there are motocross bikes, there are buggies, and you've done all these. Why did you choose for the wheel car?
Well, I think, look, from a young, tender age, I was blessed. Like my dad really, and my mum really gave us opportunity to try out so many things. I remember when Munyonyo, Speak Resort Munyonyo was being built, it was just a bush at the time. I was probably about 4 or 5 years old when we had bought it. And my dad, we went to Dubai one day, he saw some really cool toys. I call them toys, they're like motorbikes, small motorbike for kids, small buggies for kids, small go-karts. And these aren't expensive toys, but they create a lot of discipline in your life when you get to respect these machines, I would say, at a tender age. You get to use them, you get to play with them, but you also get to respect them. Because today, one thing I always did was I always cared of my health and safety, no matter what. So if you sit on a motorbike, wear a helmet. You know, I always tell somebody, you can get on in a rally car 100 times and nothing will happen. Don't give yourself the one time and the one time you forget to wear your safety gear, because that's the one time it's going to cost you. So all those disciplines you learn as a kid, they come up and you grow up with them. You can apply them in different parts of your life. You can apply them on a construction site. You can apply them when you're doing certain work that's hazardous. You care for people, and you know that the repercussions of doing something can maybe not be now, but it can be in 10 years, 15 years down the road.
Initially told us when you eventually wanted to race, you went to Mzee, showed him your budgets and the car that you wanted to drive at the time. Then you had to change your mind. It's like, just go out there and try to get what is best, what is good for you. Would you care to probably share with us initially the preferred car you wanted before you tried to change your mind until you took and look for the best?
See, I don't think it was about preferred car. I always wanted the Proto, to be honest. Previously, I'll tell you, like when I was in England, I had a chance to. I was turning 18, and I said to my dad, I wanted to buy an apartment for my 18th birthday in London, and he said, okay. He came. We went and looked at plenty of apartments, and eventually, the stamp duty and the taxes to pay there were just extremely high, and the opportunities in Uganda were much more. And the growth of your investment was much bigger in Uganda. So at that time, we looked at the value of the stamp duty we were going to pay, and I think it was coming to about £300,000. So I made a deal with him, and I said, look, give me the money, let me go and buy a car, and I'll stay at home. Because I said, instead of wasting your investment and losing your investment in London, put your investment in Uganda, make more money, right, with your investment, and give me the stamp duty to go and enjoy myself. At that point, I had the chance to literally buy any car I wanted. But I'm not the kind of guy who necessarily needs to buy a Ferrari or Lamborghini. When I bought a car, I looked at performance. I didn't look at cost. I didn't look at the brand. I looked at strictly what do I want a car for. I want a supercar to go fast. I want a supercar that can basically, I can enjoy it. I want a car that has good handling, good stability. So I chose a Nissan GTR. I had gone to go see a Lamborghini. It was about £230,000 at the time, and I settled for a second-hand Nissan GTR. And I took it and I tuned it and I did it up, and I love that car. Till today, that's one of my favorite cars because of the value for money you get.
Later on, we're going to talk about the VW Polo Proto, the one that you're driving right now. But you can also be part of the show. The number is 751-882-882 or 0414-343-663. I'll repeat the numbers again, 751-882-882 or 0414-343-663. So you've made up your mind, you're going to race, and you go to South Africa. Earlier, before you came for the show, you told us that people think you went for an entire course. Tell us about the experience in South Africa.
When I went to South Africa, I initially thought I'm going to actually go to a full-blown out academy where I was going to be there for a week. I even called them, I booked it. I got the contact from the outgoing president, Dusman, Mr. Dusman, okay. He gave me the contact for this academy. I then called a certain gentleman called Leon Botas. I booked it. I actually thought I booked a bit less time because I only booked for 2 days. So I thought it's actually going to be a full-blown academy where you're going to be taught plenty of stuff, but it really wasn't. So I went there day one, and within like an hour or two of being there, I think the main thing I learned from Leon Botas was notes and how important your notes were. I think on the driving front, we didn't get enough time because we only had 2 hours seat time. He had a regular Subaru Impreza with a semi-roll cage. It wasn't even fully tuned. It wasn't highly competitive. And I think within about 2.5 hours, we ran the engine so hard that it just popped. It just seized. Then after that, we got a second car. And within about 30 minutes, that car had issues, and I personally don't think it was because of my driving. I think it just couldn't handle the pressure of when you're entering a turn, or the braking, the speed you're coming into a turn, the amount of pressure you apply on the brakes. It didn't have a proper hydraulic handbrake. So it was a very short-lived training that people anticipated. Probably I went for like 6 months and I disappeared unfortunately I have a business to run and I can't disappear off the map for 6 months. So I ended up just doing 2.5 hours of training, and the certificate you see, the recommendation was after 2 hours of training.
The phone lines are going to be open in a bit. 751-882-882-0414343663, and I would beg that you just stick to a question that you want Rajiv Ruparelia, who is a special guest today, to answer. He's the managing director of the Ruparelia group of companies, but he's here to talk about his love for motorsport. So now let's get back to the cars. You're driving a VW Polo Proto. Tell us about that one. Because apart from just reading it here, I know nothing about it.
And seeing it in the pictures.
So the Proto is a very interesting car. It's a short body Evo that's been modified. It's got an Evo 10 engine, but a Polo body. So the reason why it's not actually a homoglofied, I don't know what they call it, but it's not a registered rally car. It's actually
not satisfied
it's
by
not
FIA.
No, it's certified by FIA,
Not
the safety, but it's not. There's a special word they use. Homo something. not that type of homo, but yeah.
Homologation.
Homologation. Yeah, so it's not that word, and basically that means that for every race you race in, you get penalties for driving that car. It's because now it's a special purpose vehicle. But it's able to compete with the R4s and R5s. That if you want an R4, R5, you're talking of upwards of about 150, 160,000 euros. So I didn't want to spend that kind of budget. Like I said, how I bought the Nissan GTR. So I wanted something that can compete with them. I don't really care, to be honest. If I go and beat them and they tell me, oh, you got 5 points knocked off because of X, Y, Z. Because at the end of the day, somebody knows it in their heart when they've been beaten. You don't need to be about the points sometimes. It's I beat you by time, fine, that's alright with me. Now because of the car I'm driving, I get a few penalty points. That's also fine with me. But you walk away from that rally knowing you got beaten.
So going into this season, in your first season you raced in the CRC. Have you been cleared to race in the NRC, or you continue to race in the CRC?
No, we've been fully cleared. We're on the NRC championship for this year, which I think FMU need to look into their rules. I think some of the rules are just diabolical, honestly. Like the one of CRC. Because to be honest, if you go to Kenya, if you go to Tanzania, you can join NRC straight off the back of it. It's a bureaucracy that is unnecessary, and if somebody has the money and they have the ability to be able to do something, they should be able to drive.
I think that is keeping out the Subaru boys, because the Subaru boys are also going to just come and say, we are rally drivers, give us NRC.
No, well, I think they're going to meet the health and safety aspect, and I think there should be a way of having maybe an experienced co-driver or driver sit in the car with that newcomer and be able to do an assessment on that person to see if he meets the standards of being able to join NRC directly. Because why has Kenya done it? Why has Tanzania done it? Why is Uganda always following? Why can't we take leadership in some of these things? Why can't we grab things by the horn and drive them, rather than have people always say, oh, but here we do this, here we do this, why are we not doing it in Uganda? You know, we got to think pragmatically and see what's in the best interest of the sport, not in the best interest of individuals and individuals' pockets. That's not how sports works, right? If we want to grow the sports, we need more competitors. We need bigger fan bases. We need more drivers. So why are you frustrating these people who could potentially make the sport 5 times bigger?
I get your point, but again, from your first season going into your second season, for starters, how has the experience been for you in your first season as a race driver?
It's been a lot of learning, to be honest. I'm just here to learn at the moment. I'm not even going to say I'm 40% of what probably I could be. I'm probably lower than 40% of what I'm going to be next year. I'm learning how to organize my team. I'm learning how to do the procurement correctly, make sure the right parts are here, how to look after the car better, how to drive the car better. Just because I beat all these guys in a few events doesn't even make me good, to be honest. So I don't know what it makes them, to be fair. Right?
And what would be your expectations going into the new season? You're competing on the NRC.
Well, I think we've now joined a serious motor club. We've got about 8 drivers who have followed with us, and we've changed, and we said we don't want to be a part of a club who's not going to stand up for our needs. So we've joined a motor club that we believe we're going to have a strong club. We're going to be more organized. They're going to stand up for their drivers. They're going to represent their drivers in a more positive aspect. Even in our motor club, what we've done in the executive, we've actually opened a position for representation of motocross. So you can be part of our motor club. You'd have a voice under motocross, and what that person says for motocross is what the club will then do for motocross, and that's how it will participate in the motocross events. So it's just bringing more unity within our club. I remember this election. It's so easy to also blame FMU for all the problems it may have, but this time I think all the clubs actually forgot to actually submit the names of who they need to vote. So as much as you're going to blame FMU, I think clubs need to fix themselves first, because you have 15 clubs under FMU and they need to organize themselves. Then once they're organized and they follow the constitution and their own constitution, only then should they criticize somebody else. If your house is on fire, don't go and criticize somebody else's house. That's okay.
So, having said that, how can we develop this sport?
It's a good question, but I think it's very difficult to just answer on spot. I think it's something where you need to have a stakeholders meeting. You need to bring head of fan bases together. You need to bring different clubs together. You need to bring all stakeholders, local safety marshals. You need to bring FIA, even if someone can come and guide us how to make it a bigger sport. Because Uganda has one of the biggest fan bases in the world. That's known. Actually, at one time, I think, if I'm not wrong, rally was a bigger sport than even football in Uganda.
It is still a bigger sport than football.
Right? Just one rally, we have more than 40,000 people participating. At the actual track day, we have about 15 to 20,000 people who turn up. And these guys turn up because they love the sport, not for any other reason. How do you make the experience better? How do you make that day, that experience, a bigger experience? Give somebody more value for money. Today, if you go to F1 in Dubai, you go watch the F1. When you get inside, you have all this merchandise that's available. You have different F1 experiences. After that, you have brewery companies who are sponsoring. You have beer everywhere, alcohol everywhere, right? On top of that, you have all the beautiful women who come on the track. When they come on the track, stand by their cars. Sex sells. Sex appeal sells. And it is what it is. Whether you like it or you don't like it, it is what it is. And that's why they do it, right? And you have all these beautiful girls, and you have the race. The race is only for 2 hours. Yet after the race, what happens? All the clubs, all the bars, they turn it up. They organize themselves. You even have a concert after. So the experience goes from being a 2-hour experience, all of a sudden it's a whole day event. By the time you go to the F1, you go in the morning by 10 o'clock. You don't leave till 12 o'clock at night. You don't even want to go to a nightclub. You're so shattered from the whole day event that you just want to go home and rest. So it's about creating more value for money for all the people who turn up for the event. Maybe you bring a concert after the rally's over, so people can continue partying. People want to enjoy themselves. That's what they want to do. That's why they've come there. They've not come there for any other reason.